All right, everybody ready?
Oh, that's
All
right.
right.
We have a quorum here.
We have a quorum. So let's open the 2019 public hearing, public forum on the Community Preservation Act and the committee. The purpose of the hearing today is to review where we have been as a committee and to solicit public comment on both the projects that we have funded and the types of changes that the public might like to see in both the plan and perhaps the priorities of the project. We're required by statute to have an annual public hearing for that purpose, and so we are. I also think it's a healthy exercise to give the public a specific opportunity to come in and talk about those topics, but of course, public's always welcome at our meetings to come in for that same purpose. So there is a chance that we may be revising the plan based upon comments that we receive. People are encouraged to also, I suppose, submit comments in writing, and we'll take those into consideration. So we have here copies of the plan. It is also available online. We have a summary of the projects that we have funded, and that is not, is this available online as a document?
Yes,
Okay.
it's on our website. If you just go to holyoakecpac.org, there's a link right on there for the projects that have been funded on that first landing page.
Perfect. So we have an agenda for today's hearing, and so I think it probably to say, let's dive into the meeting agenda. But just before doing that, I'd like to say for the record, a thank you to Mayor Pluta for her guidance through this first couple years of the CPA committee. It has been probably the most difficult 2 years that there will be on the committee. We're, as a startup operation, we were many times finding our way as we went, and the mayor did a yeoman's job of directing us through that maze. Obviously, thank you to all the other committee members and volunteers, and Meg for her hard work, Amy for her hard work. So that, I think, should be said as part of this annual public meeting.
You're
Okay,
here,
so,
yes.
I guess for the viewing audience, maybe just a very quick, brief introduction to the CPA legislation and what types of projects are fundable by that legislation, and feel free to interrupt me if I
I can jump in to just give an explanation of CPA if we want to do that.
Appreciated.
Are we on item 2?
Item 1.
I think we're on item 1, which is just a brief introduction to the legislation and the types of allowable projects, and and Amy's volunteered to give that introduction.
Yeah, just so everyone is aware, the Community Preservation Act is a Massachusetts law that establishes a local community preservation fund for open space protection, historic rehabilitation, affordable housing, and outdoor recreation in the city of Holyoke. And it was approved by voters in 2016. The funds for the program are generated through a surcharge of 1.5% and an annual disbursement from the statewide Community Preservation Trust Fund. The program is led by the Community Preservation Act Committee, a 9-member volunteer committee with myself as the support staff member. And it basically funds open space, recreational land, historic resources, community housing, under different specific categories such as acquisition, creation, preservation, support, rehabilitation, and restoration. And some of those apply more to some categories than others. All this is also on our website.
Thank you. So, if any, open for any comments on agenda item number 1.
If I may, Mr. Chairman, you want to talk about funding at all, about how the funding works or no?
Yeah, that's a
Okay.
great.
Yeah, we're expecting about $500,000 again for this fiscal year, and we have to break that down to 5% administration, 10% for each of the categories that Amy just mentioned, which is the 3 open space,
Historic resources and community housing, because open space and recreational lands are considered really one in terms of the budget.
Oh,
Yeah.
well, so what's the third?
It's just those 3, open space, historic resources, and community housing,
okay.
yeah.
All right, so 10% goes for each of that. The rest of that funding is used for whatever projects we may need more money for. You know, if we need to spend more than 10% on a project that is in a specific category, then we can use the reserve that's left over. So basically, that's the funding. I mean, you know, we have some money left over from last year, about 40,000. I believe it's 40,000.
It was about 40,000
left over,
yeah.
so that will be going into the reserve. So that's about it.
Anybody
now,
else?
for now.
I just have a question here. It says fiscal year 19. Isn't this fiscal year 20 funding that we're working on now?
Yes.
So,
Yes.
just so everybody should be
Although the
So-
projects that
but I
we
think-
funded were for fiscal
I
year
think we'll
19.
talk about, I think what the mayor was speaking to probably still under item number 1 of the agenda, and so those are fiscal year 20 projects that are coming, applications will be coming in, and item 2 will talk what projects we have funded. And
I'm sorry, I'm
so
just
that's
looking
okay.
ahead at
Yeah, I know.
item number 3, saying our priorities for 19.
Oh, yeah, that should be FY '20.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, that one, sorry. Yes, you're right.
Yeah.
Fiscal year 20 for that. So when and in the first funding cycle, fiscal year, so and anybody else have anything on agenda item number 1? No? Okay, so we'll move to agenda item number 2.
Oh, the only other thing I just wanted to mention is that, you know, there's a possible chance of a major increase in the state match, which will affect the budget. And actually, it's on Governor Baker's desk right now. So anybody in support of CPA for their community should contact Governor Baker.
And if I may, Mr. Chair, if we want, we could take this opportunity to amplify that for anyone who does watch this video after the meeting is over. For the next 3 days, Governor Baker is considering the funding in the new budget, and it includes a potential increase in the match for CPA. This is free money for Holyoke if the match increase goes through. So if you're out there watching, we would be delighted if you would call Governor Baker's office and express your support for the bump in CPA funding. It would make a great deal of difference to what we're able to do in the coming years.
Because that match has been decreasing over time, and it's only estimated to be about 11.5% at this point. It was supposed to be a much larger amount, yeah. Do you know how much that it was supposed to be? I think, I don't know, remember exactly, but it, but well over 50%.
So obviously the higher the match, the more money will be available for eligible projects in the city.
Right.
This first funding cycle, we actually had 2 years worth of collected funds that we recommended to the city council, projects that added up to about $1 million. So 2020, fiscal year 2020, we estimate roughly about half of that. So $500,000 worth of funds available for eligible projects in the 3 categories.
Yeah, and I think originally the state match was supposed to be 100%. And I think that there were very few communities when CPA first started, and it grew and grew and grew, and then that match decreased.
Right.
Yeah.
So, okay, so let's move to agenda item number 2, talk about the projects that were recommended to the city council and which the city council has approved funding of. Not a single dollar has been dispersed yet. I think that's important to understand.
Well, we have dispersed for the Glue Tech Woods project.
Oh, we did?
Yes,
Okay.
with
Sorry.
the purchase of the land and
so
the survey.
We had to close on that.
Okay, so thank you.
Yeah.
So one project has been funded, and
Or it's in process. There's still more funding, but it's started
okay.
to be funded. Yeah.
Thanks. So we have prior, and just I think quickly for the public's knowledge, that the process for funding is a reimbursement or a direct payment of invoices that come in on projects, so that no applicant is handed a check in advance of spending money on.
Well, actually that's sort of, after we talked about that more, I've discussed it also with the city auditor and the city solicitor, and it really does make more sense, as we realize, to be able to, not force the applicants to come up to front the money, because a lot of them don't have it, which is why they're being, receiving the grant. So instead, they would send an invoice with the vendor's invoice, as well as their own invoice, kind of a repeat of the vendor's, as well as a detailed cover sheet on, what the expense is for, so that way I could actually disperse the funds to them. So it wouldn't always have to be a reimbursement, because that makes it difficult.
Well, reimbursement, or their invoices would be paid, but the invoices would be for work performed. Nobody would be paid speculatively.
Right, absolutely. The work has to be performed.
Here's a check. True. Nobody's going to get a check for $100,000 or any amount that they can draw down on as they're spending. They're going to...
And then they also have to back everything up with a copy of the check that was paid to that vendor, so I know that the money really went towards the purpose.
So the point being, their checks and balances, and being very careful about the public's money and how people who are awarded grants are able to access that money.
Right.
And I would just add to that in some cases where we're not sure about the feasibility of the actual work or the timetable under which it'll be performed, the contracts do specify certain conditions, and if those conditions aren't met, the money is never dispersed and just comes back to the general fund. So,
Good point. And I think you also raise another point, which is that there are contracts under development for each of the project recipients, which put in place another layer of protection for the city's money, and to make sure that the money that is actually spent on a project provides a public purpose which lasts for some reasonable period of time. The restrictions on their ability to undo things where money has been dispersed. So Amy, you want to walk through the projects that we've funded?
Sure,
and maybe
so we
give
have,
a brief description of...
Right, we have copies for the public to see. But so the total that the CPC, the Community Preservation Committee, has funded is $1,389,000. and or is allocated for this. And so the first one is the Boys and Girls Club of Holyoke at 70 Cosmos Way, and this is a park playground rehabilitation and open space or recreational space project for $359,689. That includes 2 phases, that involve playground infrastructure and planting of trees and shade structures. And then the next one is the City of Holyoke and Kestrel Land Trust, which is the purchase of conservation land at Glutech Woods for 51.7 acres of land. This is an open space project, and that was for $177,900. Then we have the Holyoke City Hall stained glass windows restoration project. This was awarded to the Department of Public Works, and the Friends of Holyoke's City Hall, but the money is really going to the Department of Public Works with the assistance of the Friends. And it's $75,000 to restore 3 stained glass windows, 9, 11, and 12. Those are specific windows. 2 of them are decorative windows, and 1 is the commerce window in the ballroom. Then Smith's Ferry Cemetery Restoration, Route 5. This project on Route 5, this is a project, this award is going to the Parks and Recreation, and the Friends of Holyoke Historic Cemeteries are helping to administer that, and it's the historic rehabilitation of 8 to 10 broken headstones at Smith's Ferry Cemetery on Route 5, and the amount is $5,300. Then we have City Hall Annex lanterns, an award of $500 to fix the 2 lanterns on, I think is it 20 Korean Veterans Plaza? I think it is. The outside of the annex, where the lanterns need to be replaced. Then we have MIFA Victory Theater at 81 to 89 Suffolk Street. Historic rehabilitation of 63 light fixtures or sconces in the amount of $100,000. An award is going to the Valley Opportunity Council at 348 Chestnut Street in the amount of $50,000 for the historic rehabilitation of the facade, masonry repair, tuck pointing, and cleaning. And also to Valley Opportunity Council, $50,000 is being awarded for the housing preservation of the exterior of 337 Chestnut Street. So that's a community housing award to stop water infiltration in that affordable housing building. And then for 123 Pine Street and the Holyoke Redevelopment Authority, we have an award of $30,000 for the historic rehabilitation of the building facade of 123 Pine Street. That's going to go to Valley Opportunity Council, who's going to purchase 123 Pine Street from the city. Also, the next one, as you can see, is $120,000 to 123 Pine Street. Again, to Valley Opportunity Council as above, but for the housing, the interior preservation of this building. And then for 1 Holyoke CDC, $32,000 will go to 43 Canal Street for historic rehabilitation of the building facade, the stucco painting and trim. This was previously the Portuguese American Club. And that's the total. That brings us to the total.
Thank you. Anything?
And one thing I'd like to note for the public also is, especially with the Victory Theater and with the Voces Esperanza or Valley Opportunity Council, those funds are used to leverage other grants and funding sources. If they are not successful in achieving those other grants or funding sources, that money goes back to it won't be spent and goes back to the
Right.
Community Preservation Committee for future use.
Right. Also, we want to make clear that no money is going actually to Voce d'Esperanza, but to Valley Opportunity Council. Yeah, just for the record on that.
Thank you. Anybody else have any comments on some of the projects that we're funding in this current funding cycle? All good? All right, so let's move on to item number 3, which I think is intended to solicit comments from the public that it's here, but we have esteemed City Councilor Linda Vacan. So if you would. You have the floor if you would like to discuss.
Okay, well.
What types of, any comments that you have at all about the projects that we funded, and or how you would like to see, priorities or future funding, and also if you have any comments on, our current community preservation plan.
We're eager to hear.
Open to everything you have to say.
Oh, well,
And be sure to say your name.
yeah, sure. Linda Vacan, 7 Pheasant Drive, City Councilor, Ward 5. But I'm really here as a constituent and a resident tonight for the public hearing portion. And I wanted to thank the committee for their work. I know that I was one of the folks who was not a fan of the additional tax, and philosophically, I remain that way. However, I do respect the work of the group and the work that you did to pull the organization together and the process that you've used to do the programs. So I feel like that is a good thing, and the descriptions that you gave tonight, I think, are very helpful so that we feel confident about where the money's going and how it will actually be expended. But one of my favorite projects that I think is really for the whole city and part of preserving our history and the beauty of our city hall is number 3, the Holyoke stained glass window restoration. And I'm really hoping, I was actually hoping in the first run that it would be for all of the windows, because I think it's just critical to our foundational history and just the beauty of this building and, how long it has lasted, that we need to be sure to preserve it so we don't end up tearing down someday in the future yet again another beautiful example of architecture. Not that I think City Hall is in danger of that, but those windows are in rough shape. So I'm hoping, and I'm thinking that Superintendent Mike McManus will come back again, but I'm just hoping he comes back for all of them and just keep it going in whatever fashion we can.
There's general agreement about that.
Yeah. Can I just want to tell you, Linda, we had some good news that they got $55,000 also from the Massachusetts Historic.
Excellent.
What's Mass Historic?
Mass Historic Commission.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And then also the governor's budget, thanks to Representative Vega, has $50,000 in it. If it gets signed and approved, they're going to have that too for this is all for stained glass windows. So they will. This is the way they're going to be able to do the 3. So they'll be able to do 2 with the 75 and the 55.
Yep.
If they get the governor's, the budget from the state, the 50,000, they'll be able to do the 3. Mm-hmm. So that's good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I also understood, and I think the committee did, from Mike McManus when they came in with the application, that he was structuring the request in order to leverage the highest possible amount of outside funds. Yeah. And he has a schedule for this.
Oh, okay.
It was not I think I can only get the money for 2 of them from you. It was we have a plan. This is round 1.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Look for us to come back.
And this is actually the second round because they did restore some windows before this. But I guess there was a delay.
Right.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I think one of everybody's favorite projects.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. All right.
Yeah.
So,
thank you.
So I did meet with Mike McManus this morning, and he will be coming forward with requests for more funds in the next cycle for the stained glass windows. So that's already in motion.
Check.
And just for the public's knowledge and the committee's knowledge also, the Dave Conti from the Water Department will become looking for some help with some consulting work on for the committee for the future use of the Whiting Reservoir. And also, Councilor Bartley is looking at a group of citizens in Ward 3 that'll be looking for a project very similar to what we did with Glutac Woods. So those are 3 others that we can look forward to seeing here in fiscal 20.
Mm-hmm.
Mike, what was the second one? You said about consulting?
Yep.
Can you repeat that?
What about consulting?
That's windows.
Dave
The
Conti.
Whiting Reservoir.
Thank you all.
You're welcome, thank you.
Before you go, I just wanted to mention that I did bring something for each project that's, with pictures, if you're curious to look at, see images of the projects that are being funded, there's something on every table. Yeah, that's for the Holyoke Boys and Girls Club. Oh, well, I'm just talking, just the materials there, not the cell phone.
No, I got that.
Yeah.
This belongs to
No, I put that there. Yeah, I put that there for the public to look at, to actually see, what's being funded. So you can, just to look at, yeah. So
I think I got a good sense.
I need to retrieve them at the end, but yeah.
Yeah.
All right, so let's move. Anybody else have any comments on priorities of projects that they'd like to discuss at this time? No? Okay. Well, then let's move on. We'll move to item number 4.
Member of the public in this regard?
Of course.
Of course you are.
Yes,
Go for it.
of course. That's what you want.
So, Meg McGrath-Smith, 7 Wyckoff Avenue. It's okay. Meg McGrath-Smith, 7 Wyckoff Avenue. One of the things that I've heard from a few people was just around if there was a sense from the CPC of if there was the right percentage to spend on different types of projects. And if the CPC would ever be interested or willing to fund, work on, say, the Fairfield Ave Historic District. Or is there a sense of here are our priorities in terms of here's what we'd really like to fund? So, for example, the train station came up to us. And it wouldn't make sense for us to put, $100,000 towards that project, but other communities, CPCs have said, we think this one asset in our community is such a big deal that we're actually going to gap a funding year. We're not going to fund anything for 2 years, and we're going to slowly accrue everything that we know we need, and on that 3rd cycle, we'll kind of spring back into effect, and we'll fund that one large project. So there's just so many options. As I continue doing more research into what different CPCs do, every community gets to decide what it wants and what its values are. And I feel like we're still figuring that out. We're so brand new, and the public is still getting to know who we are and what we do. And I think we're still trying to figure out what our priorities are and how we want to disperse funding, because there's lots of different ways to go about it. And lots of need.
Wow. Right.
We could actually take a loan out for a project if we wanted to, too. If we wanted to, say it was $10 million, we could take a loan out for $10 million, and then the next 20 years of our funding would go for that project. There's a lot of options.
Yeah, subject, obviously, to city council approval.
That's right, we wouldn't.
There's a term for that type of loan, which I
Yeah, I know,
forget
I
what
forgot
it
what it
is,
was
but it's not a regular
Yeah.
loan.
One of the things that's really nice about the program is that flexibility you're talking about, and it does allow the committee to review those types of options. And I think I think the committee's open to maximizing the flexibility that we're empowered with.
Although, one aspect of any long-term project that required a substantial loan is, in general, the city has the right to withdraw from CPA after a given period of years following its adoption if it doesn't like the way it's going. if you commit to, say, a $20 million project with a 10-year loan term, which we couldn't do because we don't have that kind of cash flow, but basically you are in the CPA system for as long as it takes to pay off that loan.
Oh, good point.
That's a great point. That's a very good point.
These things are complex, is the bottom line. Everything has more complications than you think it will.
Yeah.
Right, and I guess that we would deliberate on those specific issues if we had a project like that in front of us for our consideration, which is what we do with all the projects, right? They come, we talk about the good, the bad, the ugly of each of them, and prioritizing, comparing. This last funding round, we generally had more money available than applicants. My guess is that luxury is going to be over. I think there'll be applications for more funding than what we do have available these future cycles, as people do start to understand what the program is and how things are funded. And I think reminds me that, one of the things that the committee has spent a lot of time discussing recently is making sure that there are signs attached to projects that are funded so that the community is aware that two things, that this is where their money went, and when they see it, they know, but also I'm certain there is a reasonable percentage of the city that doesn't even know that there's funding available for projects like this. So they drive by and see a nice project, a nice park, and I didn't say a CPA funded. What does that mean? Mm-hmm. It may prompt some more applications. So,
yeah, that's true. It'll help get the word out.
So,
one other point about this funding cycle that I think is worth making for the public is that we were in some ways fortunate this year that nothing was terribly controversial. We had a great round of applicants. Everything we recommended to the city council was happy to endorse. We weren't even asked any questions about most of them because we were able to lay out good, clear rationales that could be understood in a glance for virtually all of them. And we may not always be in that position. And certainly, if we were looking at something like taking out a multi-million-dollar loan for one big project, one important consideration would be whether the city council was willing to clear that, because they have a veto on any spending decisions we make.
Sure.
But, it has been, I think, a great working relationship so far, and I credit the applicants who came forward with things that everybody could be enthusiastic about.
anybody else? All right. So with that, let's move on to item number 4, which is just a general overview of the application process. If I might just maybe oversimplify it, without having determined what our exact schedule will be for upcoming application process, the process itself is reasonable in that the first step is a determination of the eligibility of a project. So applicants, I think it's a 2-page application, Amy, is it?
Yeah, 1 or 2 pages. And we did determine that the deadline for that would be September 13th.
Okay, so I don't know that
September 13th.
Did the committee vote on,
Yeah, the last meeting.
Okay, so we're going to have applications for the determination of eligibility available, and they're available online?
Not yet, because we're going to be talking about the actual application at our next CPC meeting. But they will be available,
So the last application isn't available either,
not right now, because I don't want people to be confused about when deadlines are.
So that'll be available shortly after our next meeting, which is July 29th. Is that right?
Yeah, I think, at least a month before the deadline.
Okay,
yeah.
so that first step is relatively painless. People are interested in submitting a application for CPC funding. First step is to submit an application of eligibility, and then the committee will review that and make sure that proposed project, it does qualify for funding under the state statute in those categories again, historic,
Yeah.
open space recreation, and affordable
Yeah,
housing.
and actually people can go and look at those allowable categories, online
Right,
at the website right now, just to see what's allowable.
That's a great point. So, and then once an applicant is noticed of eligibility, then there's a application for funding, which is a little bit more involved, but designed to not be overly burdensome. I think as a committee overall, drive has been to make this as user-friendly for applicants as possible, to encourage people to apply for good projects and not to have a 100-page torturous process that discourages people from applying for funding. And beyond the application, I think the committee is working really hard to make it easy for people to apply, and then also, if awarded or recommended to city council and then awarded, that we can work with them in a reasonable way so that we can accommodate their needs while also protecting the public's funds. So I don't know if anybody has any other comments about the overview of the application process. I'd open the floor for those discussions if anybody has any comments.
Yeah, just to potential applicants out there, if any of this confuses you, come talk to us. We want your applications. We're here to help.
Right, you can also contact me, Amy Landau, at landau@holyoke.org.
Which is the most efficient way to do it.
Yeah, that's the best way since my hours are part-time, and we can even set up a time to meet in my office.
Amy, are you going to have a specific time every week that you're going to be there?
No, I think it
That
really
didn't work
works
out.
better to have people make an appointment, which is what I put on the website, because the hours can change, because we don't always have our meetings on the same days, so I tend to be here on the days that we have the meetings for longer hours. So, by appointment seems to work best.
Anybody else? All right, we'll move to the final agenda item, which is other business. I don't have any other business. I don't know if, other than perhaps just confirming that we're meeting.
Yeah, July 29th, on
July
Monday,
29th.
July 29th at 6
Here.
p.m. here at City
At
Council
6?
Chambers. Yeah, 6 p.m., City
Okay.
Council Chambers.
Okay. Any other business?
Yeah, pardon me, Amy. Mr. Chairman, could you ask Ryan if he could post a public notification, like the rest of the committee notifications out here in the foyer or right outside the registrar's office?
Yes.
For our meetings, any subcommittee meetings or any type of meetings that we have, to make it
Can I?
public?
Yeah, and to make sure that it's on the city webpage as well, not just our CPAC webpage, but the community
The
webpage
schedule,
also. Yeah.
Holyoke.org, and then there's upcoming meetings, tabs, and it should be there too.
City calendar.
If I may, Mr.
Of
Chairman.
course.
The 29th, what's today, the 24th, so that's only 5 days from now?
That's on Monday. Yes, we're meeting on Monday, the 29th.
Well, I was hoping to have a budget, an estimated budget.
Okay.
I don't know if I can get it done by Monday night, but I will try, because I think it's pretty much in place, but I'll try to have that for Monday night, an estimated budget for the year, fiscal year 2020.
I just emailed you the Excel sheet that we worked on with Andrew.
Okay.
But there is one aspect that I'm wondering about, and that is that, of course, now we're in FY20, and my pay's coming out of the admin budget.
Mm-hmm.
Yet, where is that coming out of now that we're in FY20?
Yeah,
We have to have,
they put the estimated amount, it's in the account. It's in the account, so we draw from it.
is the
That's what-
estimated
that's
account
what we've
or
been doing.
estimated amount already in the account?
Yes, yes.
The estimated amount, I don't know.
It has to be, because that's what we've been doing right along.
Well, I'll have to check with Tony.
No, it is, it's
Okay.
there. It's there.
Anything else?
Because we need to spend
All
money.
right, because
Any
it
other
said
other
minus
business?
that amount, so I don't know, I just want to make
All
sure.
right, I'd
it's there.
entertain a motion to adjourn.
Second,
All in favor?
aye.
Aye, thank you.
Mr. Chairman?
Chairman, well done.